I'm Laurie Power, Pastoral Associate for Lifelong Faith Formation at Christ the Redeemer Parish. Welcome to Talking Saints. I'm here today with my co-host, Pete Sanchez, reporter for the Catholic Star-Herald, and we'll be spending some time talking about a particular saint and how his or her example can inspire us, because, as Pope Francis reminds us, to be saints is not a privilege for the few, but a vocation for everyone. Hey, Pete.
Hey, Laurie. Good
How
to be with you again.
Happy Advent.
Happy Advent. Yes, we're in a blessed season right now, preparing for Christmas. I do have to admit I've been listening to Christmas songs already. Is that a problem?
Well, you need an Advent playlist too.
What good songs for Advent are there?
Oh, dear. Well, later, O Come, Emmanuel. There's a lot. There's actually, I think, Focus has a whole playlist. I think it's them. If you search it, Advent playlist, it'll come up.
Okay. Yeah, I love it. Thank you. Well, of course, we're here talking about an Advent saint.
Yes,
but
this is
it's a Christmas saint.
It's actually a Talking Saints remix, because we are going back to one of the first saints we ever talked about, and we needed to talk about him again because he's so amazing. Saint Nicholas.
This is the first ever remix, and hopefully the last remix. But we got. Let's just say some people were displeased.
Disappointed.
Disappointed is a better word. With the last recording.
Not so much the content, but apparently the length was insufficient.
Yeah. So we're going to drag this out as long as we need to. No, I'm going to start singing at some point, just fair warning. No, but I think it's going to be fun. You know, St. Nicholas, funny enough, my parents got in on the joke because I think it got back to them. I think I must have told them, they wish it was longer, that all good. But then my parents for Christmas got me a book called The True St. Nicholas. So it's like, Thanks, Mom and Dad.
It's a pretty good read. We were just both reading it earlier.
It is a good read.
Very accessible if you want to learn quite a bit about St. Nicholas.
It is, yeah, by William J. Bennett. And it talks about why St. Nicholas matters to Christmas. So that's what we're going to try to share today. I think we all kind of, we know the Coca-Cola Santa, I imagine, right? Isn't that what some people...
That's what they would think of as Saint Nick.
Yeah, with the who's got a beard that's long and white. Mm-hmm. Santa's got a beard that's long and white. See, I told you I'd sing. That's it. No promise.
Okay.
So, Laurie, do you want me to start, or how do you want to?
I can kick it off, and then you can go into some more details. So, Saint Nicholas was born during the 3rd century in a seaport town on the southern coast of present-day Turkey. And I think the book goes into a little bit more detail about his parents. It seems that they were fairly well off, but the one thing that was missing from their life was a child. That was the one sadness, that they had been married for quite a few years, but never had a child. So just like Hannah in the Old Testament, apparently Nicholas's mother prayed for him, and they were indeed given a son.
Yeah, I don't know if you got this about this. You have the name Hannah?
Well, that's not his mother. They were just pointing out how she was like Hannah from the Old Testament when Hannah was praying for her son.
Yeah, I think I have Nona here.
Nona is her name, right? But he was comparing Nona to Hannah from the Old Testament. Yep.
Well, it's interesting. I don't know how true this is, but when some say that when Saint Nick was placed in his bath right after birth, he stood up by himself, raised his arms as if to praise God.
Okay.
And then also...
So they knew he was saintly right from the beginning? Is that what they're suggesting?
Well, that's what and then also, the legend says that on Wednesdays and Fridays, he refused to nurse until after sundown.
Oh, that's funny.
Which, if we know Wednesdays and Fridays are traditional fasting days.
Yes.
So, who really knows? But it's this boy.
I love a pious legend. Yes.
Yeah, it's a saintly path.
There you go.
Yeah. Yes. So what else? What else can we know from his?
So apparently, they were Christian, and they baptized him with the name Nicholas, which is of Greek origin, and it means victor of people. And I believe he was named after his uncle or a family member who was an abbot in a monastery. So we can see, he might have a little model there in the faith that he might follow in his footsteps. But sadly, there was an epidemic that came through the area where he was living, and both of his parents died in that illness. So, they think they may have actually been serving the sick, and that's how they contracted the disease. So there's a beautiful witness to Nicholas, but it did leave him an orphan at that time. And apparently, being an only child, he did inherit everything. But he took Jesus's words to sell everything you own and give it to the poor very literally. So that's part of the reason he used what he had to assist those who were in need and who were sick and who were suffering.
Yeah. And then that gives we can probably one of the most famous stories about him. This is where the legend really comes from. Is during that time when you mentioned he had this inheritance and he wanted to give it away. There was a man had 3 daughters who were all they were of the age to marry. Okay. But the problem is that the father could offer what they call dowries, which is a young woman needed a dowry to attract an offer of marriage, basically to help with the marriage and the
money to offer to the prospective husband,
and
his family.
They were in dire straits financially, and then he realized the only way I can do this, I need to sell them into, sell them into servitude, and that way they could be off financially, but not in a good way. And Nicholas heard about this, and he said, "Well, I have money," so. That night, but he did it in secret. He put several gold coins into a small bag and started out for the father and the daughter's homes. And it was a late night and the family was sleeping. And how does this sound familiar? Nicholas crept up to a window, reached through, and he left a bag of gold in the house. And some say left in a shoe. Others said a stocking. Who really knows? But anyway... And then he got away before anyone saw him. And then they got a dow of gold and a dowry, a bag of gold, and it was enough for the oldest daughter to marry.
Nice. And then apparently he went back, right?
Repeated it.
And then
I think finally the father was able to catch up to him the third time and realized who it was and was like, "Oh my gosh, it's Nicholas." So it's the spirit of generosity and sacrifice that I think is telling right now in that story. That again, who knows if it's accurate, but it does provide good stuff for all of us, right?
Indeed.
I think so.
And it still impacts us today. So apparently, he is now considered the patron saint of pawnbrokers. And pawn shops, and you'll often see the symbol of 3 gold balls outside pawn shops, and it was inspired by the 3 bags of gold that St. Nicholas gave to the poor family. So it's so interesting that pawn shops have taken him as a patron.
And he's a lot of places have, but we're getting in too far. Don't want to talk about
I know we got to talk about his life. So what we do know about him. So apparently he spent, was it 7 years tortured and imprisoned for the faith under the Diocletian persecution. Until, of course, the first Christian emperor Constantine issued the Edict of Milan, which gave religious liberty to Christians at the time. And subsequent to that, he was consecrated a bishop, and they referred to him as the boy bishop because he was only 30 when he was consecrated Bishop of Myra. So that's very young, apparently, even for that time, for a man to be consecrated bishop.
Yeah. And he, and then there's another story, too, about when he was, there was a famine going on. Okay. And this was in, I forget the name, Lycia. Okay. And what ended up happening was there was, he was on a ship that was going to Constantinople. Okay. And they stopped and they were transporting grain, and they saw the poor, they saw the sick, and he said, these people were starving, and he said, let's give them some. They were going from Alexandria to Constantinople, but they stopped at Myra, and he said to these ship's captains, he said, "Here, give these starving people some of your grain," and they're like, "We can't. We'll get in trouble if we don't have all of it." Understand? It's part of their livelihood. And so he said, "No, do it." So these men did it. They gave the grain to these people, and then they boarded. They went back out, and then when the grain ships did reach Constantinople and they got there, the captains started unloading. They saw they still had the same amount of grain.
Wow.
That they
Little
started
miracle.
at the beginning.
Okay.
It's like the loaves and the fishes.
That's right.
Kind of. And this is only about 300 years, right? 4th century after Jesus. So it's interesting how this legend has endured. So many legends have endured with Christianity, but this is a particular one that it's cultural in a lot of ways. A lot of people should know about the real St. Nicholas.
Yeah.
So, and then what happened?
We also know he was one of the, I believe, over 300 bishops that participated in the Council of Nicaea. So that, of course, is where we got...
Yeah, I know what you're going to say.
I don't know if that even made it into what I found in my research, but I do know the story that you are referring to.
Well,
so, of course, the Council of Nicaea gave us the Nicene Creed, which we pray at Mass every Sunday. So it was very significant. It was one of the first ecumenical councils of the church. And basically, the purpose was to resolve confusion over the nature of Jesus in his relationship to the Father, which was caused, of course, by the Arian heresy, which was arguing that Jesus was not fully God and equal to the Father. So the council formulated the creed, as I said, which outlines the basic Christian belief that the Son is consubstantial with the Father. And we continue to pray that every Sunday at Mass. So that was a significant council. But yes, he is known for going against Arius, right? Do you have the story?
Well, I have it here. Well, I thought it was a punch. I thought he punched him. But this says it was more because Arius was vigorous in what he thought. And, Bishop Nicholas was like, I can't take any more of this. He went across the room and smacked him across the face.
Ooh.
And the bishops were shocked. And they brought him to Constantine, even though, because it was illegal to strike someone in the presence.
Okay.
But the bishops, he said, the bishops determined the punishment. So they stripped him of his bishop's garments, chained him, and threw him into jail. And that would keep him away from the meeting. And then I didn't know this. So when he was in prison, this story says during the night, Jesus and Mary, his mother, appeared asking, why are you in jail? And Nicholas said, because of my love for you.
So I'm defending you.
Jesus then gave the book of the Gospels to Nicholas. And then Mary gave him, I don't know what this is, an omophorion. So Nicholas would again be dressed as a bishop.
Oh,
and then when the jailer came in the morning, he found the chains loosed on the floor and Nicholas dressed in bishop's robes. When Constantine was told of this, the emperor asked that Nicholas be freed. And Nicholas fully reinstated as a bishop of Myra, and then also the Council of Nicaea agreed with Nicholas' views, deciding the question against Arius. So I just think that is
what a story. I love it.
I love it because it just goes so counter to what we know about St. Nicholas, but also I think it gives him depth, because if that's a true story, that shows his humanity more than anything I think any else could. I think we all have those moments of anger, and we have those moments of love and kindness, but I think it rounds him out a bit more, honestly. It's not,
I agree.
Not just the who's got a big red cherry nose, cap on head, suit that's red, special night, beard that's white. Sorry, I'm just getting that song in my head.
Oh my goodness.
But
do we even know if he had a beard? Maybe not.
Well,
where did that tradition come from?
Well, it's interesting. So there is some stuff. There's other legends talking about how other stockings in the red. So flipping through this book, and then other sources I've read too, they talked about the
it's possible the bishop's garments that he were wearing were red, so that wouldn't be.
That's
though that does seem kind of unusual.
Yeah,
it's not a liturgical color, but maybe I'm missing something there.
Yeah, there's just the So they even have German lore. Says that when St. Klaus became a priest, family members in the wool trade presented him with a fine red woolen cape. And then also, there's another story about scurvy striking Lycia.
Okay.
So to help him out, he cut his materials to make stockings and filled them with fruit.
Oh, that makes
sense. To help
sense.
them from scurvy.
Scurvy,
So
yeah.
that might be where we
oranges,
get the
vitamin
stockings.
C. Yeah, that makes sense.
And I've seen them in classic artwork.
That's
too.
true.
Santa, and I don't know. Have you ever gotten fruit in your stocking?
No, I don't think so.
Chocolate,
but there's. Well, that was, like the chocolate gold coins. That comes from his gift of the dowry, I think.
And they have the chocolate oranges too.
There you go. You got it.
But
so another quick story that probably is not legend, that this probably did happen. Apparently, he also helped those that were suffering unjustly, because there are records of him intervening to save. There were 3 men falsely condemned to be executed by a corrupt judge who had accepted a bribe. And Nicholas heard about this and basically walked up to the executioner and grabbed the sword out of his hand to protect these 3 innocent men that should not have been condemned. So he was also a protector of the innocent. So he definitely had a heart for those in need, those who were suffering, particularly unjustly.
Yeah, do we know when he died?
Yes. So he died in Myra. On December 6th, we believe. That's why we celebrate his feast day in 343 AD. And apparently he was known as such a devoted and holy bishop that the people immediately recognized him as a saint and considered him a saint, which is why the church kept careful track of his remains after he died, because they believed, okay, these are relics. So I believe initially there was a church built in Myra, and there is still a church of St. Nicholas, but his remains were actually moved years later when the Muslim Turks took possession of the area. They were moved across the waters to Bari, Italy, which is in the heel of Italy's boots. And it's still celebrated. So the Feast of the Translation of the Holy Relics of St. Nicholas from Myra to Bari is celebrated in Italy to this day on May 9th in the basilica that they built there in 1089. It was completed. So they're still celebrating it 1,000 years later. And apparently there's an interesting event that happens on the feast day every year. There's a liquid that they call St. Nicholas manna that flows from his bones, and it has been for 17 centuries. And on May 9th, they collect it. A priest siphons some of it into a glass vial, and then it's used to bless the faithful who make pilgrimage there. So that's a new one. I have never heard of St. Nicholas's manna. But if you ever go to Italy in May, you could visit.
There you go.
It out.
Yeah, and there's actually a prayer here that I found about, it invokes his name here. And this is an interesting prayer, protection of the innocent, kind of what you said.
Yeah.
It said, God who didst grace the blessed Nicholas as protector of imperiled innocents whilst he lived, and after his death by countless miracles, grant that by his merits we may be freed from perversion of justice while alive and from the fires of Gehenna, hell, after death. And then I think that's also why Nicholas is such a name, too. I mean, it's Nicholas in English. There's Colin, I guess is a word.
Oh, is a derivative?
Too. Okay. Yeah. French, Nicole, Colette. An Italian, Nicolo. In German, Klaus. Nikolai in Russia. There's more than a few emperors and czars and government people Nicholas Tsar
have his name.
So he
was inspiring gift giving apparently all the way back, to the Middle Ages. Apparently there were some French nuns who started bringing gifts anonymously, like under the cover of darkness, to needy families and their children on December 5th. And then the next morning, the poor families would wake up to find, food and clothing and treats. And when they tried to find out who their benefactors were, they got the answer, it must have been St. Nicholas. So that sort of gave rise to it must have been St. Nick, who we, of course, now call Santa Claus, at least in our country. He's got different names depending on where you are.
Yeah,
but the idea of giving in St. Nick's name, being generous to those in need anonymously.
And there is the... December 6th is his traditional feast day.
Yes.
That is where, I don't know if your Catholic school did St. Nicholas Day where they filled.
I don't think we did. I don't remember. But when I was in the convent, it was a big day. Everyone put their shoes out. outside their cells.
I remember, my family, we would do that. We practiced that for St. Nicholas to come on December 6th. And then.
So that's a fun tradition if you have children on December 5th.
It is.
Put their shoes out.
It is.
Little early treat during Advent.
Maybe we'll have a chocolate gold coin today.
Hey, there you go.
Honor of St. Nicholas. And it's anything. Yeah, I mean, what is do you have a favorite? Now that we're talking about St. Nicholas, I'm thinking about Christmas. Do you have a favorite Christmas memory, Laurie, of just the gift giving or?
So my mom was very generous in the spirit of St. Nicholas. Every Christmas it was crazy. People would walk into the house and think several children lived there with the number of gifts that were under the tree. If they didn't know, they probably would have thought. But yes, so my mom was very generous. And so Christmas morning was always spectacular in my house for sure.
Same here. And I have loved getting, obviously, getting stuff, but also giving stuff.
Yes.
And being able to do that. I remember one year I helped out in high school. We did a thing, Operation Santa Claus.
Oh, fun.
And I remember that was where we met. I think it was Christmas Eve. We met I went to school in Philadelphia, so it was North Philly, which wasn't the best area. Mm. And that's where the school was. So we met at the school Christmas Eve, and then was that the Christmas Eve or the day before? Anyway, it was like couple days before Christmas. And I remember we went around. We had teams that went around, and I remember my father driving a station wagon. We got a sack full of toys. Nice. And it was me and some other students. I got to be Santa Claus.
Oh, fun.
And the other students, my other classmates, got to be
some elves.
Yeah, got to be elves. I remember one year I was an elf, one year I was Santa Claus.
Nice.
So it was just a lot of fun to be able to see the joy on these children's faces, because they didn't have a lot in these areas, and God bless them, and just able to
carry on that generosity.
Yeah, and these gifts that we got, they were all donated by the school community.
Oh, that's great.
So that's all we went to the school, we picked up the bag, and they said, okay, go here, go here, go here. We went on a designated route, and we made children's Christmases.
That's awesome.
It just was really the impact of that. And we have St. Nicholas as a really good inspiration for that, to continue that generosity and that spirit. And maybe if you need to slap somebody in the face who's preaching false doctrine, maybe do that too. No.
Maybe not. Maybe more charitable approach to bringing them to the truth.
Exactly.
Give them a good Catholic book.
Yes.
There
like
you go.
True St. Nicholas. If you listened to our podcast last month,
there you go.
You would know what we're talking about, the gift guide. So give a listen to that if you're curious as to what give them a good gift. I think that's good, Laurie.
Yeah.
But do we...
I do have a prayer. Shall
awesome.
we end with asking for St. Nicholas's intercession? Loving God, we thank you for the example of St. Nicholas, who fed the hungry, brought hope to the imprisoned, gave comfort to the lost, and taught the truth to all. May we strive to imitate him by putting you first in all we do. Give us the courage, love, and strength of St. Nicholas, so that like him, we may serve you through loving our brothers and sisters. Amen. St. Nicholas,
pray for us.